Hey, I'm Jennifer Page, and you're watching Eclectic Arts Media.
I hope all my experiences are like this. I mean, I've been blessed thus far with all the projects, especially this one, to have such an amazing time shooting it. I mean, apparently I do darkness and death really well, so I don't tell happy stories yet.
When I did the vocals for the chorus of the Phantom of the Opera.
Hello!
Hi, Chloe. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm doing really good.
Someone was just leaving the bar with a beer, and then there was this opening, and I just felt myself climbing onto the bar.
It feels kind of like laughing about it last night, a family band in a way, because, you know, and that's really exciting as well, because, you know, it feels a little bit more like home when you're on tour and stuff.
And even the thought of it seemed insane, but I thought, yeah, maybe let's give it a go.
I wanted to look exactly like they looked on the cover with their big permed hair and their chokers, and like they were so badass and so cool.
And you're watching Eclectic Arts Media.
I'm the kind of person that, like, when I'm really, really driven to do something, I will do pretty much anything to learn what I need to learn. And so when I was a kid, I actually took piano lessons at like maybe 5 or 6. And the teacher basically told my parents it was somebody that, you know, we knew, and she told them, she's like, yeah, you know, she's doing pretty well, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, her fingers, her hands are really small. I've always been a very small person. I'm only 5'2".
Good to see you. It's been a while. It's been a while since it's been the two of us right here together.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with the last Fun Table session, I had to go back and look, and it was like in April of this year. So
I know, I was just thinking about that. I was like, wow, if I think back to when we did the one that was this year, yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
There's so many guests that I always love talking to, and you've definitely been one of them. And proof's in the pudding, because you've been back so many different times.
We have great conversations, that's for sure.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts Media, based here in Seattle, Washington. And thank you so much for joining me on this 1st of April, 2024. So I guess it's happy April Fool's Day, and hopefully they don't get too many pranks put on you. I'd like to thank Kaylee Reese for joining me from HBO's True Detective Night Country. It's always a pleasure getting a chance to talk with Kaylee. We first met, I think that was 2021, and it was actually through a film festival. I think it was her first film, and she's gone on to all kinds of other things. She just announced today about this new show she's going to be a part of, and I know she's still kind of getting back in the boxing ring to kind of figure out where she is as a professional boxer. She's a 6-time world champion, if you weren't aware of that. So it's always great that get to see somebody who's really just a great person, very inspirational story behind Kaylee, and then see the success of that TV show, and then now she's just kind of on her way up to the stars. So it's really great to talk with her. That was about 10 days ago. And then coming up, I have at least 2 things that are pending. I'm just trying to lock down the days and times. One of them was actually today. Somebody was asking me about a couple things. So if you'd like to know when I actually have those locked down and what day and times they will be, please follow me as Eclectic Arts Media, one word, on Instagram. That's where I post everything first. And then some of that information migrates over to other social media platforms. And if this is your first time joining me on my YouTube channel, if you do me a huge favor, please hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell. You can do a thumbs up and like this video, put a comment down. Any kind of interaction always helps out the algorithm. And if you're over on the Twitch side of things, if you could follow me over there, that's always appreciated, because that's where I started all of this live stream stuff, which is kind of crazy to think about that we're in April. So it's almost been, it'll almost be 4 years once we get to May 22nd it was 2020 when I started all this. So it's kind of trippy that here we are almost 4 years later. I'm still doing these. I still love doing these. Of all the things that I do for the media outlet, interviews is something I never get tired of. Writing reviews, even photographing concerts and things like that. There's days when I just want to sit here. I don't want to go back into Seattle. I don't live in Seattle proper. Some people don't realize that I'm actually north of Seattle. But doing interviews, if I could interview every guest from everything that I've ever done, I would absolutely do that. But that's just not in the cards sometimes when it comes to musicians and actors and theater people and the opera and ballet and all that kind of thing. But I have done 2 in-person interviews. There's a good chance I'm going to have at least 1, maybe 2 in person this week. Again, it's this waiting game, and anyone out there in the in the media world, if you're trying to get into all this stuff, you'll find out real quick that, finding the right contact is half the battle. And then once you get that, you got to see if you get approved. And sometimes you don't find out till the day of the, the event, which I've kind of put my foot down about, that I need at least 24-hour notice. So that's kind of ridiculous that you can't let me know, with that lead time. And that's not asking too much, I don't think. But anyway, we'll save that for another time. But hopefully everyone's doing really well out there. Here in Seattle, it's like partly sunny. I think it's probably like, I can't see my degree thing there, but it's probably about 60 something. So we're looking really good. Spring is definitely sprung here. All right, so let's get to, this is live stream number 8. That's something else I wanted to mention. And so from 2021, when I did like 160 something that year, and then some Muggle job things changed. So then it started dropping down in 2022. Then last year it dropped a little bit more. This year, again, I love doing the interviews, but especially in this format, because I'm comfortable. I have a lot of control over the environment. In-person ones, they're really quick and there's a lot of stress involved. But it's just down to scheduling and balance and trying to find everything so that I don't completely just hit a wall and collapse. But this is number 8, and I've been lucky enough to go from, Australia to Germany, the UK. Let's see, Chloe's in New York, and then went up to Canada with Lee Aaron, back to the UK with Patrick from the Queen Tribute Band, and then Kaylee's over on the East Coast. So it's been, with no intention, very international already with these 8. So, but this guest is really special because she's been a part of this since the beginning. So let's get to my introduction and then we'll bring her on. My guest today first joined me back in June of 2020 while I was opening the Alice virtual tour. We barely scratched the surface with that interview due to the time constraints that we had. Fortunately, she came back for 2 additional interviews, as well as 3 fun table sessions. She's always a fantastic guest, and I'm thrilled that she has come back again. Please welcome back, there's that word again, to the Eclectic Arts Media virtual studio, Miss LEAH Ingram. Hey, LEAH.
Hi. Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you too.
Yeah, it's
my little bean right here. Everything's backwards. Everything's weird. But I've got my little guy right here. Can you see him? Oh, yeah, I can see him.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Bean, you're a star.
It's always interesting how many different things have come into these live streams. If it's, people's fur babies, if it's other, kids have, come into screens and stuff. And
bald babies, is that what we will call them? Because there's fur babies and then there's humans.
Yeah. At this point, nothing really surprises me anymore when I'm live. And you know that too from being a musician. That's part of the fun when you perform live. It's like you just get out there and do your thing.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, and that's actually, rarely do I have good timing, but we scheduled this, and then probably like a handful of days later, you dropped this news on your social media that you're going on the road.
Yes.
So let's start there. Let's talk about who you playing with and what are you going to be doing in the next month or 2.
Yeah. So I'm going to be playing bass and doing backing vocals on this tour with a band called Glasslands. And it's going to be a tour with the band's Secrets, oh my gosh, Colorblind, Unwell. So, I mean, it's going to be a month long, which is way longer than I've ever been out on the road before. So that is just absolutely crazy to me. So I'm like excited, but I'm also nervous because this is my first time like being on tour in 7 years, I think. And so excited and nervous, and then excited a couple more times. But yeah, the band itself, it's like a rock band. They've got some heavy stuff. They've got a lot of melodic stuff. It's all really cool. Everybody in the band is really cool. And so I'm excited to hit the road with those guys. And I'm like, I don't know. It's like it hasn't fully hit me yet, I feel like.
Okay. Yeah, no, when I saw that, I got really excited. And I was looking, I said, wow, this tour's going from East to West Coast.
Yeah.
And I thought, is there Northwest in there? I said, oh no, not this time. But
not time. And we are also doing 2 shows in Canada. So we're also going, like, technically, we're going like 2 shows that are out of the US or whatever. So like that's like up in the other direction. And then we're going all the way down to Florida. So I feel like it's more like we're hitting, like, I don't know, kind of top, bottom, left, and right.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, because those dates are like, it wasn't like you're doing like a regional thing. It's all over.
Right.
And so, like, have you played over in like on the West Coast with your previous bands or other things that you've been a part of?
No, so this is going to be the furthest west I've ever been in my life. So I'm really excited because I don't know, you just hear really cool things about, like, I'm really excited to go to like Arizona, where you can just see for miles because everything's so flat and there's just like big rock structures and things like that. Like there's things you see in movies, but you know, if you haven't seen them in real life, it just feels like, I don't know, it feels magical in a way. Like it feels like I'm going to Disney World. So I get to go to Texas, which I've been to Texas before, but my sister lives in Texas. I'm hoping I can visit with her for a little bit as well. I am hitting all of the states where my family lives, which is really awesome, so that I can kind of like hang out with them. And yeah, going all the way to the coast though is new for me. I think the furthest west I've ever been is like Denver. So like that's not very far. It's going to be different for sure, but I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, no, I can kind of tell from you that you've got all these different kind of emotions going on about this. You know, that you're looking forward to it, a little bit of anxiety with it.
Absolutely.
You also kind of get to see, like you said, sightseeing and hopefully check in with some of your family members. So they've got all these different pieces kind of working with this tour.
Right. So as soon as you say like, oh, I'm going to be in this city, everybody's like, oh, we have to see each other, you know, and it's awesome because of course I want to see everybody. So I'm like looking forward to hopefully getting to connect with people that I normally wouldn't see more than maybe once a year. And I get to kind of see all of them within a month of each other, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's almost like, you know, this is your life a little bit.
Yeah.
And I want to say hi, Susan. Thanks for joining us through Twitch. Susan's someone who I used to work with. At one of my previous Muggle jobs that I won't mention. So how did you get involved with this band and this tour? Did you already know them, or did they record there in the studio, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so Brandon, the drummer, Brandon Mullins, is my husband's best friend. And so they've recorded a lot of their music here at the studio with Nick. And they go way back. Nick was the best man in Brandon's wedding. We hang out with him on like a pretty weekly basis. So it sort of was like a running joke for a little bit that they were like, oh, if Leah would just learn bass, then we could, like, she could just play bass for us and do backing vocals and stuff. And then eventually it got to a point where they were like, but really, like, would you do this tour? And I said, yeah, you know what, I'll try it. So I'd been thinking about getting into it just because it seemed like a good new kind of thing that it was like left field for me. I had never played a stringed instrument. I've done piano. I can play like 1 or 2 songs on acoustic guitar. And outside of that, I was like, this is so new to me. Like holding it, I like where your fingers are, it's all very, very foreign to me. So I said, okay, I know myself well enough that if I have a date, like, hey, I need to know this by this date kind of a thing. I need to practice these and get these down, that I will succeed in that. And I've been doing really, really well to learn everything. And I'm really surprising Nick, especially, who is teaching me everything, because he's played this exact music at some point as well, filling in on another tour in the past. And he's like, I can't believe how good you are. So I'm like, oh, great. Okay. So I'm not going to completely just like embarrass myself or, you know, look silly for never having done it before. So I am super excited that I've kind of got this new thing that I get to focus on.
That's awesome. I mean, there's so many things that sound right about this opportunity for you.
Yeah.
And you're going to have so much more to talk about when you get when you get back after the tour.
Oh, I feel like it's, like I said, still hasn't completely hit yet because there are still a few weeks to go in between now and then. But just like the weeks since finding out about the tour to now, I feel like there's been just like so many things, you have to get together, a passport, all those different things. And it's like, at some point it's really going to hit me that like, oh my gosh, we're going and we're leaving. And all these preparations I'm making now are actually going to like hit me when I'm getting in the van and like driving away.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that you definitely has a plus is you have toured in previous bands. So at least you're not brand new to the road. That would be totally different.
Oh my gosh. Well, and I feel like this is the longest tour I will personally have ever been on. For a month long, we've done stretches. Leave Earth had done stretches that were probably somewhere between maybe like 10 and like 15 days or so at the most. And so this is definitely like, twice as long, if not 3 times as long. So it's going to be different for sure. But I know like the little things of like dry shampoo and just places that you can go and like get a shower and places where, I don't know, just little tidbits of information that you kind of build up and then you remember like, oh, this is really important to like pack this thing or to go to this specific place. So I'm not necessarily like nervous about the living in a van part. I think I'll be okay. Although being 31 now, I think that I'm also probably overestimating my back and its willingness to cooperate with me these days versus 7 years ago when it was like, oh, we're just young and stupid and we're getting drunk and sleeping in a van. So that'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, and you'll like you just said, I mean, you're gonna find out once you're actually out there, 7 years later. Yeah, how's my body holding up 2 weeks into this? We got 2 more weeks more to go.
So many vitamins.
And having interviewed and just as a fan, so many bands that have come through Seattle, the ones that are driving 400 or 500 miles between shows, and they don't have money for a hotel that night, so they're in their van or hoping that someone will let them crash, in their place. And like you're saying, certain things that you pack, if you have baby wipes and all the other kind of shit that you kind of need when you're on the road, you at least have that knowledge base. And obviously the band does too. So it's like, okay, we kind of know what we're doing here. And some things you can't plan for, that just happens when you're out there on the road.
Right. And Nick keeps telling me, because the thing that I'm most worried about, I think, is just stage etiquette of getting my stuff on the stage and then getting it off of the stage. Because anybody who's played in a band knows, I mean, a bass like Ampeg it weighs probably twice as much as I do. And I'm picturing myself trying to get stuff off stage and just holding everybody up. And Nick was like, you know what? A weekend and you'll have it down to a science. Like, don't worry about that. So
yeah, no. Well, and again, you already know, like, once your set's done, you get on the stage, you kill it, and then you got to get all your stuff off as quickly as you can, so the other guys get their stuff on there. You don't want to be dismantling your drum kit on the stage. You get it off and then you do it so that the other guy can get on. You already know that, because some people don't. I mean, they're just kind of fumbling around and don't understand.
Yes, I just want to be ignorant, and I don't want to be the person that is, I guess, like holding anything up, holding up the show, because I could see myself being that person.
I agree with your husband. It'll take maybe a couple shows, and you'll be like, okay, I've gotten into a rhythm. Like, what happens, or if one of the guys in the band's going to make sure to grab that Ampeg, off the stage because it's just too heavy or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I've seen plenty of shows here in Seattle where even like the local stagehands in the club already know, okay, we're moving the big amps, we're moving the back line, we're not grabbing the guitars because the band's grabbing that stuff or whatever. So it's not their first rodeo, so that they know.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to go into it letting everybody know it is my first rodeo, so that way everybody goes easy on me. I'm I'm going to be like, I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, please bear with me.
I will openly be that person. I will work on it and I will do my best, but I'm going to make sure everybody knows not to be mean to me.
Oh, this really is exciting because, again, for people out there that don't know, Leah and I got connected through YouTube because of a cover she had done. So it was because of music that we got connected.
Yeah.
Almost 4 years ago, which is crazy.
Yes.
To think about. And so I still remember, listening to some of your stuff on your YouTube channel, which I believe I linked into the description, and how I kept thinking, man, it'd be so great if I got a chance to see you live at some point. At that point, you're leaving kind of music. You weren't done with your band per se, but you weren't performing anything with them. COVID was going on. It just opened up for you to go back as a stylist to work.
Yes.
And so it's like, it just wasn't like, the timing wasn't right at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, I totally get that, especially as an artistic person. You can't force it.
Right.
Especially if
I feel like having, 2020 hit and everybody sort of disappeared for a little bit and had to kind of hit reset on their lives a little. And, like you said, my band just like hadn't been playing shows or like doing anything like that for a while. And so I was doing things here and there, and I still will be doing things here and there where it's just like, if I feel like writing a song, I'll write a song, those types of things. But yeah, this is the first thing in a while that is feeling like more solidified, I guess.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's a big deal that you're going to be out on the road for a month, playing shows, and I'm assuming with that, you said there's 4 bands on this bill.
Yes.
So are you guys doing like a half-hour set roughly?
That's a good question. I think we're doing 7 songs. It's a 7-song set, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm learning them. I know how many there are. There are 7.
All right. And I haven't had a chance to check out the band. Of course, I'm going to do that after this interview. But is there a particular song in the set that you're like really, really vibing with?
So they just released a new song a couple of days ago called The Meek. And I really enjoy that because it's a little bit more challenging. And so it's kind of more fun to play because at first I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And then once I started becoming confident with it, and I was like, oh yeah, look at me do this. Like, I don't know. It has a lot of movement to it. It's really fun. And then there is a song called The Ether that I really enjoy as well, because I get to do some backing vocals on that track. Hopefully, I think those are things we'll be ironing out at practice before we go. But I really like the vocal patterns of the harmonies in that song, so I'm excited to get to do that part as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's. Is there? So with you doing the bass duties and doing some background vocals on this tour, are they normally a 3-piece or a 4-piece, or what are they normally when they're not having a bass player?
So typically, they actually just parted ways with their guitarist, Jordan. He is a full-time streamer actually, and does really, really fun stuff on like Twitch. And he was kind of leaning further into that. And so now it's just down to Brandon and Josh. So it's just the 2 guys at the moment. And as of, only a couple of weeks ago, they're just like a duo.
Okay, so that's interesting. That must have been, it may have posed some challenges for those guys, maybe to not rearrange their songs, but kind of figure out instrumentation wise, if we don't have this, what are we doing with these existing songs then? And then also knowing that you're going to be coming into the fold to help kind of beef up that sound, I would think.
Yeah. So we were kind of having to look around to find somebody. It was like we didn't know about the tour until a couple of days after they had parted ways with the guitarist as well. It was like literally a couple of like maybe 2 or 3 days later that the offer came in. And so, you know, we were working, trying to find somebody that we thought would be able to play the parts and do it well and be like a fun hang for a month. And so my friend John Sue is going to be filling in on the guitar for that as well. So during this tour, there will be 4 of us. But yeah, I think typically on stage, between fill-ins and friends and all that stuff, typically they've got a 4-piece on stage. But as of like official members at the moment, yeah, it's just the 2 guys.
Okay.
So I don't know if I answered the question the first time, I guess.
You did, yeah. So they definitely, so they have yourself and your other friend that are going to be doing the live shows. So there's 4 of you. But officially, as a band moniker, there's 2 of them right now.
Yes.
Okay.
So I would imagine, yeah, that's probably a little bit difficult to have like gone through that change, especially with the tour coming up. But I think it's going to be cool. I think we did the running around like chickens with our heads cut off for like a week or 2, trying to get, you know, make sure that we could make it happen. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident about it now.
That's part of the you know, the fun and the stress of something like that kind of situation, especially for the existing 2 guys, because then they're getting new blood into the band for the live show.
Yeah.
Which can be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Kind of stirring things up, but at the same time, it's going to be a little daunting. Kind of like, no, we can do this. We can kind of pumping your stuff. We can do this, and kind of like, can we do this? Until you actually see it. And a few rehearsals, you'll know when you have the new people there. It's like, this is working. I was like, you know what? I don't know.
Yeah, luckily everybody in the band that's going on this tour in this lineup is very, very talented. And I honestly, I'm not worried about any of them. I'm worried about me. And so I've been slaving away. I'll like pick a day and I just do nothing but play the bass. And then I give myself another couple days to kind of register everything. And then I do it again. And so, yeah, I'm like, if there's a weak link, I think it's me. So I want to make sure that I'm like doing everything I can to be the strongest weak link that I can.
I'm sure you'll be fine, especially once you get that first show out of the way.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun. I'm an anxious person, as you guys all know. So like right off the bat, that's like where my brain goes, is to, oh my gosh, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen?
I'm right there with you. I mean, the first time I did one of these things back in May of 2020 with Alice, I mean, I was a nervous wreck. And I actually journaled about that. I put that out there to the public so people can actually read what was going through my head at that time.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating for me to go back and read it every now and then. Like, God, what was wrong with you? I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal.
It's just the nerves, because you work it up in your mind knowing, oh my gosh, in 4 weeks I'm leaving for this trip. Oh my gosh, in 3 weeks I'm leaving, you know, or I'm doing this thing, or, you know, this thing's coming up or whatever. And you build stuff up in your brain, and then you do it and you just go, oh my God, that was so much fun. I can't wait to do it again. So I'm lucky that I get to do that for a whole month straight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the fact that, what is this? I keep my numbers. This is live stream number 353. So I'm still doing it.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, all those nerves of the first few that I did, when I just didn't know what the hell I was doing. The only thing I could hang my hat on is that I had done interviews prior, just had not done them in this format.
Yeah. Well, and especially with these types of things, it's like you have to figure out what works best for you, and that takes time anyway. Which I think is better than you start somewhere and you just stick with that because you're like, well, I've been doing it like this whole time. But I like that it's evolved, and you know, you're making them more accessible because you're doing them for multiple platforms, and you know, bringing people on. And I feel like it's funny. You can look back at those first ones now, though, you know what I mean, and see like such a big difference.
No, that's a really good point. And I have done that. It gives me a good laugh when I go back and look at those. I'm like, why was my camera down there? And what is that rattling sound? And yeah, what happened? How come I don't have like an intro? Because I forgot that this platform that I use, I was always using my phone. And then Yeah, and if I had it in landscape, they had not figured out a way for me to actually access video, so I couldn't make them. So I would always do this thing where I'd go press the button. It's like, hey guys, I'm just checking everything and make sure that everything's going out correctly.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was not professional at all.
Hey, you know what? It gave us all a time to like grab a little snacky poo, and I've got my sparkling water. Like, gives you a second.
There you go. Yeah,
Because even if you have an intro, it takes the same amount of time, right? Because you're sitting there going, okay, you're still doing all those things. It's just you got a nice intro that's playing at the same time.
Yeah, I remember like scouring YouTube for like, what do other people do that who are already doing this stuff 4 years ago, and thinking, well, I want to incorporate some of that into what I do because I don't like where I'm at. And that's that's just the brain of that I have with anything that I do. It's like I'm never satisfied.
It's fun when you can look at other people and go, wow, that's a really cool thing. And then you can kind of build your own version of that too. So when I was streaming, I mean, I liked to watch streams that I felt like were fun. And so I was like, oh, I want to make mine fun. I want to have the little themes around the edges of the screen. And I want to have the little chat and I want all the little bubbles to be, So yeah, it's like, but I started off, I think, with probably nothing and was just like, this didn't feel the same.
Exactly. I remember, I think this was in 2022. Alice actually interviewed me. So they turned the tables on me. And so I had put this video together, this montage of clips from that tour in 2020. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's one. I know what I was trying to do. So with this background, and like you said, everything's backwards using this platform. There's one where you can barely see my head above like the top part here. It was just like a little bit of my head, and there's a huge background behind me. And I'm like,
oh my gosh,
what am I doing? Then what I was trying to do is that the things that were on the back, I had like two things. I was trying to make sure that those were in camera so you could see them, but I didn't have myself high enough so that I was like kind of equal.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point now where, and we talked about this right before we started, where I'm like, I'll just stick my camera phone on like the thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to my camera and now I'm messing with the lights and just trying to and then it ends up being different once you get on there anyway. So it's like, you can do all the prep in the world and you think you're like, yeah, this is going to be perfect. But you're in like the swing of it now where like you're illuminated and you've got like the background. And I'm still in the dark and I am just like, yeah, cool colors.
Yeah, no, very true. I at least have that comfort of kind of knowing, okay, this is what I should be doing. You got a live stream coming up, but kind of just even from like the homework standpoint of things, it's like, so what has Leah been up to? What do I already know? I still have this habit of, so back in the beginning, I would have like every question written out that I was going to ask my guests. I mean, literally every question, because I didn't. If I had a brain fart because I was so nervous, I can just read the question.
Yeah.
And then I got away from that. I got completely away from it. If there's like a name of something, or if there's a film coming up and I don't remember the film title of the director, that stuff I would put down. But the questions were all stream of consciousness during the conversation, which I'm doing actually right now too. So it's kind of like, don't forget this, don't forget that. You were going to bring this up.
It's bullet points now. It's just bullet points. It's not, hey, here's questions that you have to ask word for word.
Yeah, and it's for the most part it works fine.
Yeah, we do that a lot for the podcast where we have bullet points because during like the very beginning of the first season, we started off where we were like, okay, we'll just like have a topic and just go ham. And that was just so unhinged. And there were so many side quests happening that it was just like, there's no way this isn't going to make any sense. And so I was like, we have to at least have bullet points where we like know these are the important things to talk about. And these are the subjects we want to at least stay mostly on like this road. And like, you might take a couple turns, but you come back, to center stage or whatever.
Yeah, that's smart. And that's exactly what I do with my in-person interviews. I always have my little bullet point topics in my phone. And then I started incorporating some of that into this live stream world. Yeah, so because, as we know, especially if you're comfortable with a guest like I'm comfortable with you, it can go off in all kinds of crazy ass directions.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's okay. But at the same time, it's like if you can kind of stay somewhere in the ballpark, it seems to be a little bit more impactful at times.
Yeah.
Especially because I always have to as we were coming out of the pandemic, I had to remind myself that was such a unique time because people were just at home.
Yeah.
So what else are you doing?
It was, well, and it was hard to connect with people. Like in general, like not only were we at home, but we felt disconnected on top of that. So it was like, how do you bridge that gap?
Very much so. And I would say, especially like I would say like later into 2021, when I was doing so many live streams, I had to realize that people are, back into their lives. They're back into doing some things, and it kept increasing. So, Mark, you don't get an hour with this person now. You get maybe 40 minutes if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And I always have to remind myself that 40 minutes or even 30 minutes, like for a promo interview, that's still a lot of time compared to the in-person ones that I do, where you get, Mark, you got 10 minutes, get on the tour bus, do it and get off.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, I should be really, really grateful for the amount of time. It's just like, I was extra grateful when I had even more time during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But life's definitely about perspective, and sometimes I lose it just like everybody else does. So it's like, well, no, wait a minute. You get to sit down with somebody and, pick their brain for, again, that could be 30 minutes, could be 45 minutes. And even like the in-person ones, if somebody gives me, I did one last year with one of my favorite opera singers. I've been trying to interview somebody from the opera world forever, and finally not only did I get somebody, I got somebody that I really, really admired, and he gave me 40 minutes in person. I was like, and the communication director is right there next to me. So I said, hey, I tend to ramble. So if this is going to get a little past the 15 minutes that I'm allotted, just tap me on the shoulder or do something. So I'll just know, hey, wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
And he was like, I talked to him after the interview. And he's like, Mark, I could tell from the guest body language, he was so comfortable with you that I just let you go. He had time in his schedule. Didn't have to get the rehearsal yet. So I just let you go. So I so appreciate that, because I'd rather have more time than not enough time to do that.
Yeah, I feel like you get so much extra stuff, like when you're talking more comfortably than, just, oh, here's the curated question and here's what the short end of that answer is that I can give you in this amount of time.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've said this many times with the live streams, that pre-show and sometimes even post-show talks, but also in-person stuff too, before I'm actually filming. Part of me, which is some of that stuff was out there, that people could see like what was talked about or some of the goofy things that happened. If they don't, especially if they don't know me as as a person here in Seattle, that they just know what they're seeing right now. They don't know what happened backstage. They don't know what happened. Some of that.
Yeah, of course. And then but you have those moments, like if you have just a little smidge longer, you have a little bit longer to become more like on a personal level.
Yeah, this opera singer that I was mentioning, we were talking about cherries for some reason once the interview finished. He'd actually been to Seattle for a stretch of time, and he just loved the cherries here because it was cherry season. And I'm like, this is so bizarre to me, but so cool at the same time that I'm talking to this. He's like a big deal in the opera world, and we're talking about fruit.
Yeah, absolutely. So are you a cherry person?
I like cherries. I'm probably somewhere in the middle. I'm like a huge
I was going to say
fan.
that was a thing there. I didn't know that was a thing there.
Oh, the Rainier cherries in the summer. That's the thing that we do out here. And you'll see like all the farmers markets and all the fruit stands. The Rainier cherries are in. Come get them, kind of a thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think most people associate us with apples more than anything for Washington State.
Yeah.
And I know we export a bunch of them and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, just some of these kind of random things that happen. And right after his interview, like 3 months later, like I don't want to say my second favorite opera singer, but another one, she was so extroverted. I wasn't expecting that at all. And so she's super really fun, big energy. She wanted to do a test on my camera. So I was using my phone at the time to film this and kind of seeing how she looked and where we're going to put things. And then she's like, all right, let's go. And I'm kind of like, holy shit. It's again, sometimes I get thrown for a loop. So the people that are watching the edited version that's on my YouTube channel, they have no idea what was going on around it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I feel like that's can be said of a lot of different just media in general, because if you could just peek, I feel like sometimes they're behind the scenes, but what I do some of the time is help out on set for like music videos and things like that. And it's just the silliest stuff where it's like, you know, you'll have somebody, they always call me and they go, we need a demon, we need a witch, we need a spooky foil. Come here and be our weird girl, or like do makeup for this thing. Like we need it to look spooky. And so they call me and I roll up with my bag full of stuff. But it's funny, you know, I'm painting these people up and they look so evil and whatever. And we're sitting there and they're dancing and we're all like having a good time. It's the funny behind the scenes thing where it's like, if you could see the video where it's like, oh, it's so serious and it's got this really deep, dark like video with like a serious message. And then you see like the making of the video and it's all of us just like complete opposite energy of everything.
That is a perfect example of exactly what I'm talking about. I got a chance last year to talk with David Howard Thornton, who plays Art the Clown in the Terrifier films.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, so people know him obviously from those films, which are, you know, highly disturbing depending on who you are. And I remember coming on. We were doing it like in the evening, like on a Sunday, and I do like what I did with you. What kind of timeline are we looking at? You know, do you need 30 minutes? You know, do you need hard stop in 15 minutes? What do we have? Because his people had told me I think that I had 30 at most, and so we came on, and he's like, Mark, I just had dinner. My cat's right here. I'm comfortable. And he's in New York, so it's a 3-hour difference. And he's like, you can go as long as you want. And I'm like, are you sure? Because when you say that to me, I'm going to go. And we went for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
But he's also a talker, so that helped.
Yeah.
And it was like, I was so appreciative, though, of the fact that he didn't say, you know what, I know my publicist said that, you know, it needs to be 30 minutes, but in reality, I only have 15 because I got to get to sleep or whatever, which I would have completely honored and respected. But the fact that he was the other way around is like, no, man, I'm comfortable. Let's do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're going to be kind of the same thing like when you're on the road, because when you're on stage, you know, people see that if they get a chance to talk to you, you know, after the show or at the merch table or whatever. But the whole in between, you know, what got you from that city to the next city, they don't see that unless you guys post it somewhere on social media or make a video later on blog or whatever.
100%. There's a lot of life happening. It's almost like, you know, when you get to like, if you have friends in from out of town, like maybe they drove like over here. I've got friends that'll drive 2 hours from my hometown to come visit me or vice versa. And like, my sister came the other night and it was like a 3-hour drive. She's from Detroit, so it's a 3-hour drive to get here to Columbus. And I was like, text me when you get home. And then, you know, I'm continuing on living my life. And then when I finally get that message of we made it home, it's like you think about all the things you did during that amount of time. It's like that's a month of what I'm going to be doing. You know, it's like that sort of feeling of like, oh, you're just like living your life and carrying on. The world is just doing all the same things it always does. And I'm just in a vehicle somewhere on a map, just slowly making my way to wherever the heck I'm going.
Yeah, no, that. I mean, it's kind of like your own version of like the vacation movies or something like that. Where you're just kind of going from place to place and all these new experiences and things that you're taking in, and clearly when you get to do live performances, that's this huge high, and then you come off of that high once you get off stage, and then you kind of have to you know, deal with each other and all that kind of thing. But that's part of the gig. I've said this many times, and you know this, that for bands, you know, the road separates people real quick. I mean, if you're like really wanting to do this, then you'll be out there and you'll be all right. You'll find a way to make it work. If you're like a wannabe, just love the idea of it, you'll be off that road quick.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and it's funny because Brandon, once we confirmed that the tour was happening, Brandon goes, "Are you excited to see if you hate it?" And I was like, I don't think I'm going to. I have had a taste of it before enough where it's not so foreign to me that I'm going to be like, oh my God, what is this? So I think it's just funny that, it's like you could find out that it's really not for you, but I've had enough of an experience with it that I'm pretty sure it's for me. It's just a matter of like, where are we going? What are we doing in that in between time? You know, what's the journey really like?
Yeah, see, and like I've never been on tour myself. I've played just shows locally around here. We never did like a West Coast thing or anything like that. So like if someone told me when I was in my early 30s that, which would have been 20 years ago, hey, Mark, we're gonna go on the road for a month, I would be really, really excited. And then right after that, I'd be thinking, oh shit.
That's what I'm experiencing right now of being an adult, having an adult job, having adult like obligations in my life of paying bills and taking care of animals and all of that stuff. And obviously I'm very lucky to have a husband that is willing to support this decision and, you know, help take care of everything while I'm gone and do, you know, twice as much stuff as he normally would be doing. So yeah, it's just, it's funny, but yeah, it's like you get to a certain point and you're like, yeah, it's, I have to do it. Like, why would I not do it? But you get to an age where you're like, man, can I do this? So, I'm really excited. I'm nervous. I'm excited. I'm nervous a couple more times. That's why I'm like, it's going to be great. It's also going to suck in some ways. I mean, sleeping in a van is never really like, you know, great on the bones or whatever. But I think that what people learn that they don't like about the road also depends a lot on who they're spending all of that time with and all that stuff. How the shows were, if they were having fun during all of that stuff. I've had good tours and I've had bad tours. So I think that it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, and again, you know, you're 20 years younger than me, so I think you're not too old to do this. You're older than the last time you toured, but that still is kind of relative.
Right.
If they threw my ass out on tour, I mean, I'd be coming home in a body bag. I mean, it's not gonna be feasible, and I'm realistic about that. That's okay. I'll do these. I'll do in-person things, but yeah, throwing me into a van, yeah, not gonna happen. I won't be able to get out of it.
Yeah, it's funny. You just reminded me, my dad, when he moved to Florida, he like did the like retired guy thing. He like moved to like a retirement community and he bought the like MacGruber car. He got the Miata. And it's funny because my dad's got a bad back and he was like so stoked about this car. And he still is. He still has it. Not that anything happened to it or anything. But like watching him lower himself down into this car, like trying to like not hurt himself and then trying to get back out. He's like climbing out. And I'm like, Jesus, why'd you do that?
Yeah, see, that's me because I have a bad back and I've had it for 20 years. So when I the vehicle I'm driving now, it's higher, so I have to climb into it. So I'm not used to that. I'm used to it now, but initially I wasn't. But now when I get into like a regular sedan or something, it seems so low to me.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So like I'm trying to slowly maneuver myself so I don't throw out my back.
I definitely, I feel like I have noticed things like as I get like every year, you know, you get older and you start noticing more progressions of things going wrong. And I will say that like, as far as back stuff goes, like I used to always sleep on my stomach. I can't sleep on my stomach anymore. That will mess me up for weeks. You know what I mean? It's like the silliest little things. And so, yeah, like what kind of car you have, with what I do for a living ergonomically, like I do a lot of like movement with my upper body and with my wrists and things. Like everybody gets carpal tunnel and I'm like, yeah, it's wild. That stuff really starts to creep up on you.
Yeah. My left elbow from my muggle job that I've been doing since the end of 2021 in that same realm of work, I have an elbow problem now because of this repetitive motion.
Yeah.
And so I know exactly what you're talking about, that you don't really think about it until it starts to bug you. And you're like, what happened? Where did this come from? Oh, it came from doing this.
God, did I sleep wrong? It's like you get to an age where you can sleep wrong, I guess. You know what I mean? It's like when you're young, you can sleep on the floor at your friend's apartment and wake up fine. And then, you know, it's like I've got to have like the temperature has to be right. The fan has to be going. Like, it's like you can't even sleep right anymore. It's so difficult.
I'm totally there. I keep thinking, wow, when did I become such a fussy sleeper or whatever? Like I have to do all these certain things to show that I can actually get a good night's sleep. But it's like this is what happens as you kind of get older and your body kind of doesn't respond the way it used to things that can put up with things like it used to.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely a trip. And that's why I tell like so most of the people at my Muggle job, I can tell this really quickly. Since I work a really, really early shift, typically from like 1 a.m. or sometimes 2 a.m. then I work 8 hours. So the people that are closing, I'll sometimes crisscross with them. They're getting ready to go home and I'm showing up. And so every now and then I just saw two guys on Saturday morning talking to them. And one of them already knew he's like 23. So okay, fine. Now you could be my kid. No big deal. But the other guy is like a manager and I have not met him yet. So we're talking shop and stuff. And he said, "Oh, so you grew up around here, Mark?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And I said, "For some reason, we got into the year 1988, and that's when I graduated from high school." And he said, "Oh, my mom graduated from high school at the same year." And then it's like, "What high school did you go to?" And it turns out his mom and I went to the same high school. And then it turns out I said, "Wait a minute, who's your mom?" And he said her name. I'm like, "She was the TA in my art class. I actually remember her from this." So we didn't know each other, but I remember her name. Yeah, I said, "Wait a minute," because she was the daughter of our vice principal. I said, "Yeah, that's my grandpa." And I'm like, "Oh my God." So that means you can be my son too.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's when you get a concrete, example like that, just slaps you in the face. Like,
oh yeah, it's crazy. Like my nephew will be 17 in like a week. And that's so weird to me because it's like, it makes me feel old, of course, because I'm like, where did that time go? But also, yeah, just being like my little cousins are like graduating from high school and I'm like, ooh, that feels wrong. It makes you like, where's, when you used to be the youngest person at your job or like in the room and like suddenly you're just not anymore. There's like a whole generation of people that are just like younger than you now.
Yeah, I think a rough estimate for me in my current job, probably maybe 95% of them could be my kid.
Wow. That's so weird.
Yeah, and none of them ever correct me either. They don't, "Oh, Mark, you don't look that old." I mean, they just kind of go with it. Like, yeah, okay, I can see that. As long as they don't start calling me dad or pop or something or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
But they've all been cool. I'll give them that credit. I've had no issues with any of that. They've been really fun people to kind of get to know, and because I do this stuff, so somehow I seem somewhat cool to them, I think.
Yeah. Well, you know how the internet works, and that gives you way more credit than most people, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, one of them, he's on my Instagram, so we see each other's stuff, and he's a hip hop artist when he's not working his shifts, and that's when we start talking shop. When I first started there, it was last April. I just started talking to him about some random shit, and he said, "Oh, I think he was working on his laptop before he started his shift." I'm like, "What are you working on?" I said, "Well, I'm working on a mix of my new song." I said, "Oh, so you're a musician?" So that got us off to the races. And it's really talented. Got a management, all the whole thing. So it's done music videos, and I'm like, "Dude, you're gonna blow up at some point. So I can say I knew you when. I need to get an autograph now. Let's get a selfie."
Yeah. Let's do an interview now.
Yeah. And I've actually thought about having him come on this platform because I thought, I should have him come on and we can talk, and some of our coworkers can come into the chat or whatever and give a shit or whatever they want to do.
Yeah. At least then everybody can put in their 2 cents.
Yeah, they can, and they can hide behind different names and stuff if they want. You said what?
Yeah. Which one of you was that?
Yeah, for sure. And you kind of brought this up earlier. Let's kind of segue into Honestly Same, because you guys are on your second season, correct?
Yes. So we just finished season 2. So we're in between seasons at the moment, and we just finished filming our Q&A episode for like the middle of the off season. I don't know we were calling it the pre-post season. But between seasons 1 and 2, we did a Q&A, and so we figured we would do a Q&A now since season 2 just ended. And so I got to hang out with them a little bit for the first time in a while, just last week, which was really nice. We kind of just get right back in the swing of things, which is fantastic, and it's so much fun. But yeah, I'm not sure when season 3 will start exactly, but I think maybe like beginning of summer, hopefully.
Okay. And yeah, when you're talking about that, you just filmed the last episode last week. It just triggered in my head when I contacted you. You saw the date and you're like, Mark, I'm recording a podcast that night. I can't do it. And I'm kind of like, this is from a year ago. This was just kind of checking in with you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I like when you sent that, I was like, oh wait, I can't do that day.
Yeah, and I just remember that.
Yeah. I forgot actually until you just said that. I was like, what are you talking about? And then it clicked with me, and then I was like, oh my God, yeah. It was so.
So how do you guys, for everybody, if it's honestly the same, there's 3 of you, and how do you guys figure out your topics?
Honestly, more often than not, we have a group chat, and every now and then we'll just be like, we should talk about this, and then we'll just go, we'll add it to the list. And so typically before a season starts, we will sit down and hash out what our favorite ones that we've listed over, the past couple of months, what we think we should talk about, what order in which we think the episodes should go, the bullet points possibly for those episodes. A lot of the time we end up doing the bullet points like the day of, like right before we start filming. But it's always sort of like, honestly, just because we've only done 2 seasons, maybe it's come really easy to us thus far. But as we move along, it's like we started off with very, very kind of general topics where it was like parenting, like growing up, adulthood, lots of things that a lot of people can relate to. And then in season 2, we played a lot more games, which I really like because it kind of goes into a lot of different subjects. And we went into a couple more specific things. Well, at least what I guess I would consider specific. And so as we go, I think we start coming into like more, I guess, niche topics where it's like, oh, I'd really like to talk about this because this happened to me. You know what I mean? So now we're sort of at the point where this past season, we had an episode about grief, and it was actually supposed to be much later in the season. And just because I happened to have been going through something in that moment that related so much to that topic, we kind of like arranged things in a way where we could do it sooner. And so yeah, they're not set in stone to a point where we can't switch things or whatever, but it kind of is just what comes to us that we think, hey, we could talk in length about this subject.
Okay, that makes sense. That with the first season, it's a little bit more about these topics are pretty more generalized, that people could relate to these things. And then as you're going into second and subsequent seasons, it's going to be, this is something that I think there's a lot there for us to kind of chew on the bone kind of a thing with, and a little bit more specific depending on how the 3 of you are feeling. And like you just said, it's like, basically like having a run sheet. Doesn't mean that we have to do episode 8 at the end. Maybe that topic's going to get bumped up because of something that's going on with any of the 3 of you. Because I remember seeing that, I think you guys had posted something, I think it was actually about that grief episode, that it was like maybe the toughest one for the 3 of you to discuss, go through, because it's so emotional, and that it got extremely real.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing is, no matter what we're talking about, we want to make sure that our feelings and the messages that we're conveying and the things that we're talking about feel the most genuine. And so it's not always easy to like open up when you're feeling some type of way, especially like that episode being difficult because it was grief. It wasn't like, something that I necessarily wanted to be vulnerable about in that very moment, but it's something that I knew would help me if I could talk to my friends about what was going on, and just get my feelings out. And so even though it was a hard topic for us to brush on, it was important to me that if we were going to do it, it was, when it made sense and when it could be the most genuine, whereas if it had been a couple more weeks further down the line, I don't think I would have been feeling it quite as strongly, or I wouldn't have been as like locked into that like place as I was when we did decide to finally record the episode.
That makes perfect sense. I'm thinking two things. There was a time when Sydney Sherwood, who's a musician in New Jersey, interviewed me like in 2021. So I knew it was coming. So I'm kind of like, okay, so you have carte blanche. You can ask me anything you want. So in that case, I kind of can prepare myself for what she might bring up, because we discussed things during her own interviews about mental health and it's a really serious topic. So I know she's going to go there. So I'm like, okay, I can get ready for it. But then on the flip side, during the Alice tour, I had a guest who will remain nameless, who I just wasn't prepared for the era that he went into. And so I'm live. So I'm kind of like, shit, do I go there with him and try to, maneuver through this topic that was really like a very, very serious topic to him? And, or do I try to kind of like acknowledge it and then steer us back to maybe more lighter topics? We went down that path. And I still remember, because once we were done with it, I was so exhausted, even though it was like 45 minutes or whatever it was doing the interview. Normally I would be on later talking to the Alice people and seeing what they're doing. I shut off my laptop. I went and watched TV, and I just zoned out because I needed to decompress about what had just happened. And I wrote about it so that I could post it out later for the Alice fans about, this is what happened in terms of this interview, this one, and then that one. I'm like, wrote this huge thing about this. I don't know how it came across to you guys, but for me, this was something, it was clearly the toughest interview I had to do because I wasn't ready for it. It just blindsided me. But I'm also really, really proud of it too, because we did stay there, and it was very, very organic. But damn, was that tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I feel like, what he was probably going through during that time, like it could have been super helpful, for anybody else that could have been going through something similar and just happen to be watching or whatever it might be. You never really know what somebody's going through, I guess. And so a lot of what our podcast is about is those vulnerable topics. So sometimes there's a lot more like lighthearted stuff in there, and sometimes it's not quite as positive, but it's always something where I think we come out of it feeling better on the other side, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and that's important. And you talked about that. It needs to be something that is very organic. It's not something forced, because people don't relate to that, and they pick up on it really quick too. If you're being disingenuous about what you're talking about.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I know that from doing these, that those early ones, that I was trying to be like a host, like the Tonight Show or something, and I kept thinking, because Alice told me, you're going to start off these shows. So I'm like, okay, I'm the host. At that time, we're talking about, we're starting off in this city, even though they're in LA. We're on this virtual tour. So I did the whole thing. And then I kind of realized that's not really me. And it wasn't until I got feedback from my local friends that watched it. And they're like, you know what, Mark, that one part when you're like said that self-deprecating mark about your head or whatever it was, that's what I liked. I like that stuff. So I'm like, you did? I said, I thought that was a mistake. I wasn't trying to say that, but I just kind of slipped out because that's the kind of person I am. And they were like, no, you need to do more of that. So I slowly got away from this hosting thing. And I said, okay, this is who Mark is, and this is what I've been doing. And, if you relate to it, great. And if you don't, you don't. I think I'm a fairly respectful person in general anyway. And we'll kind of go down this path. And this from doing the podcast and also being a musician, that you end up being really vulnerable at times that you didn't think you were going to be, because you're putting yourself out there. If you're on stage and here's my music, and you're kind of like, hopefully you like it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of putting your diary, on a stage that happens in any art form. I mean, there are people that write poetry or just do like short stories or make films, and you know, ultimately the idea came from somewhere, which was probably emotion that they were experiencing. And when you put something like that out there, you're just going, okay, is this just me or here, you know? And then I think that's why people connect so much with music and with art, is because they're seeing, oh, I connect with that because I've felt that way. And you can look at, you know, maybe like a sad painting and be like, I've felt the way that this painting, the feeling that this painting makes you feel before. So I feel like that's one of the things about art that's really cool, is that you can sort of put what you're feeling into it, and other people can then understand what you're feeling on a personal level. And yeah, there's just something really beautiful about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking, kind of for me, brings up the question for you is that, have you met either in person or if it's something like this, an artist or someone that really helped you through a tough time, and you've got a chance to actually talk to them or meet them in person or thank them for, you know, something? Because it happens to musicians all the time. I just know if you yourself had a chance to talk to somebody that, you know, really got you through some things.
You know, I think that there have been lots of times where like music got me through things, or even like a book or something got me through things. And a lot of the time, I don't think I've personally ever like met somebody that like I was like, oh my gosh, you changed my life. Because I don't go to a lot of like live music, especially of like a lot of what I grew up listening to, and especially during, you know, childhood, middle school, a lot of that was like older music that was people typically like my dad would listen to. And it's like, well, you know, Paul McCartney's not going to be like, yeah, hey, come, you know, let's chat real quick and you can tell me all about, you know, whatever. So there have been plenty of times where, whether it was like I said, a book or something like that, where the person that wrote it is like an entity to me. You know what I mean? It's almost like, instead of thinking this person changed my life, I think this thing that I experienced changed my life, I guess. So I don't know. I've never had that like feeling of, oh, I met somebody and I had to be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for what you created. Because either like, I don't have the money to afford to like meet these people because it would be insane. Or like I said, it's like they're maybe a best-selling author or something, where I'm like, the chances of actually meeting the person is maybe slim, but I just have like this appreciation for the creation itself that I think is very personal to me, versus like my connection to the person that created it, I guess, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, okay. I mean, I'm thinking back. It does make sense because I'm thinking back to this interview I did 10 days ago with Patrick. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, his name's Patrick. He's the Freddie Mercury in Killer Queen, which is one of the longest running Queen tribute bands from like 1993, and they're from the UK.
Yeah.
And he talked about something similar. That the question always comes up: have you ever met any of the members of the actual Queen? And he was like, I want to keep them on the shelf. I don't want to have this interaction with them now, because then it changes that, and that's what I hold dear. So I want to keep that. I want to keep that there. Yeah. As much as they've meant to me in my life and everything that he went through, it's like that's just like they're there, and I hear feedback from things through other channels about, you know, that they like the band and think we're doing a great job or really respectful, but I don't need to go shake their hand and tell them about, oh, you know, this other kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think there's a saying, and I don't know if it's more elaborate, but essentially it's like, don't meet your heroes. Everyone is a human being, and everyone deserves and has the space to be imperfect. And I think that even if something that somebody created seems perfect to you, the person themselves could just be, I mean, is just a regular person, just like you or I. And it's sort of, if you think about the way that like John Lennon was murdered, because this person had built him up in their head so much, and meeting him, they built it up in their head so much to a point that when they met him, anything would have disappointed them. And I'm the person that I am so obsessive over anything that like means something to me. Like musically, if I find an album that I love, I'm going to be listening to it nonstop for like days and days and days. But then, you know, what if you find out later, oh, that person is not quite like as nice as you thought, or, you know, they didn't interact with you, or they, I don't know, in a way where it's like, you don't want to be, I don't know, you feel connected to them, but they don't feel connected to you, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I've been fortunate enough to meet people either virtually or in person, and because I have had people ask me this question about have I ever been either like disappointed by somebody or they're a jerk or something like that when I got a chance to interview somebody, and from the top of my head, I can't really think of anybody, which is really, really fortunate.
That's a good thing. That's a big.
Yeah,
I was talking with a client the other day about apparently Jennifer Lopez is not very nice. And that's so disappointing because I think she's just this ethereal being. So it's like, yeah, when you find out like the human that's behind the entity, we'll call it, you know, sometimes that's difficult, but it's really good if you've met a bunch of people that have not disappointed you. And that's one thing I've heard about Paul McCartney, is that he's one of the most humble people you'll ever meet. And that's why I would be willing to meet Paul McCartney, you know, if he wants to meet me. Kidding. But I always say, because when you hear about people like that and you go, if Paul McCartney can be the most humble person in the world, then people like J-Lo should not be out here acting anything less, as far as I'm concerned.
Here. I'm totally with you with all that. And I also understand from just, you know, the sidelines that, you know, for some of these people, you know, if you take like Taylor Swift, for example, how you stay grounded when you're that freaking huge and everywhere you go. I mean, and to me, yeah, and maybe I'm, you know, missing things, but I haven't heard anything bad about her. And just in general, like getting in trouble or doing something stupid or, you know, pissing somebody off or whatever. She just kind of just tries to do her job and her life.
Right.
And there's all these people that love to hate on her, especially people my age. Kind of like, you know, and especially when the football thing happened and dating, you know, Kelsey and all that. I'm like, she's on screen for 3 seconds. I mean,
also, I mean, it's like if anyone were at those games, they would zoom in on them. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's funny, but she brought a lot of money to the NFL because a lot of people who never cared about football were watching football. And a lot of people who had been watching the NFL before that started getting upset about it. Like, oh, well, we've been here this whole time and we don't care about that. It's like, okay, well, you know, you just have to accept like, oh, this isn't for me and move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, why are you getting so uptight about something that's so like it's inconsequential? I mean, it's so
yeah,
small.
It's so silly to me that there were people that were like, I'm not watching ESPN anymore, and I was like, really? Why?
Yeah, no, same thing. So when she came to Seattle last summer for 2 shows, and my Muggle job, boy, they sure loved having her fans here because the economy and just everything from restaurants, bars, hotels went through the roof. And she donates at every city that she plays in to the food bank of her choice, which a lot of people don't know.
I did get that from her, which I think is so amazing.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, you can do if she can do these things, or like you're saying, when Paul McCartney can be a humble person, if you get a chance to run across him, then everyone else should be falling in line with that. It shouldn't be, you know, you're like above everybody.
If the person is taking over the world right now, which she 100% is, if this is the person that's doing so much in their life right now that they are known, they're a household name, they're like the biggest person, most profitable person probably in America at this very moment, they're doing something right. So it's like, I don't know. People love to just be upset about nothing.
Yeah, that's That's what I think it boils down to.
People just really like being upset. They need something to be upset about. They'll find anything.
Yeah.
Oh, that blonde girl's on my football.
Yeah. Well, and they'll come and look at your social media. They'll come watch my YouTube video and leave some kind of shitty comment or something. I'm like, what kind of life do you lead?
It's funny to me, but I've noticed, and this is not something new, but just recently I feel like I've noticed more people just being so bitter, and just like commenting mean things, and I'm like, you could just move on. You could literally just keep moving on with your life and be like, oh, again, that's not for me. Some of it being just like ads and things like that, through Ingram Audio and stuff, where it's like there are people that are saying stuff and I'm like, they're like, I would never use this, and I'm like, okay, don't buy it. They're like, I would never pay that kind of money for a Taylor Swift ticket, and you're like, okay, don't go. Nobody's making you go. Nobody's making you do anything. But yeah, there's always somebody that just wants to be loud.
Yes, there is, and social media gives them a platform for it. And I'm totally with you. It's just like, I think about the times when I do leave a comment on someone's post. It's always something positive. Like, I'm really happy for them, or I'm looking forward for them coming to town if they're going on tour, or whatever it is. I can't think of a time where it's like, you know what, that really sucks, or you suck, or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that, and people take things so seriously. They'll get in arguments with people they don't even know, and it's not going to affect their life in any way, shape, or form. And I'm like, why are you putting so much energy into this? It's just, it's.
Yep. As soon as I see like a DM like that, and knock on wood, I haven't had one in a while, I just block them. I don't engage with that at all. It's like, you can sit there and write this huge dissertation, and I don't give a shit. That's like,
yeah, moving on with my life.
Yeah,
I'm like, you're funny if you think I'm gonna read all that. Yeah, nope.
Yeah. You keep your negative thoughts to yourself and be over here. I'm over here with the good people. I don't need this.
Yeah, I'm just vibing. I'm just here to have a good time.
Yeah, and I've been constantly reminded by doing these interviews that there are so many good people, and there's so many people that I want to make sure that I stay in that realm. So, I mean, that's even one of the reasons why I reached out to you, is like, hey, it's been a year. You know, how do you feel about coming back on?
Yeah. Because the last time I was on, I was talking about, oh my God, it's been so long. And now it's really been so long.
Yeah, it's trippy. And I've got somebody else that most likely will be coming on in the next couple of weeks, and I haven't talked with him. It's been at least a couple of years, I want to say.
Oh, wow.
And so he's like, yeah, Mark, that'd be great to, reconnect. And he's been playing in bands and stuff and doing drumming and all that kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, because it just kind of dawned on me, like, I know he's up to stuff because I see it on social media, but I'm like, why don't I reach out to him and we can connect again?
Yeah.
Which is really fun.
Yeah. I think that being able to rekindle those types of things where it's like I have friends where every now and then it's like you feel like you haven't talked to them in like weeks, and then all of a sudden we're spamming each other with TikToks and just like sending, funny videos or like just random thoughts. And it's nice to be able to like have those people where, like, no matter what, like how far apart you've grown or anything like that, you can always come back and it's like nothing ever changed.
Yeah, it's so comfortable that regardless of what's been going on in their life, at the core, they're still the same person that you knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that'll be the same thing for him. Even as I mentioned, I think at the beginning of the intro today, with having Kaylee Reese come back, I remember that first interview because I had to look into her background. She's a professional boxer. She's a champion. Acting was new to her. And when she came on screen, she just has this presence to her. It's like, well, it's because of her boxing.
Yeah.
And we kind of related so much. And she's very street, very hood. And I used to work in the hood for over 10 years. So I can relate to that kind of thing and just kind of cut through the bullshit. And so when she had a second interview, I set it up directly with her, which a lot of people don't know. And I didn't have to go through all these other channels. But because of the way that first interview went, she said, oh, yeah, Mark, I'd love to come on and talk. She had just gotten cast in True Detective. I mean, she just dropped that like 2 days before I reached out to her.
Wow. You have good timing.
Yeah, in that case, the timing was good in that case. And, then finally the show came out in January, like a year and a half later or whatever. And I said, hey, let's get together and promote it. And she said, absolutely. I said, here's my manager's contact information. You have to, arrange it through him, but Mark, I want to do it. So I'm like, okay. And then it became this whole process, and HBO got involved, and that's when it became a stumbling block for a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
And I understand, when you're on that level and you got Jodie Foster with you and all these other, big, I'm small potatoes compared to that. I get it. I totally get it. And that's why I told her manager, I was like, I can be the most patient person as long as you're not stringing me along. So
yeah,
if it means the whole show has to debut for the 6 episodes that it is, and we do it at the end of it, I'm fine. In some ways, that's even better. We can talk about the show because it's already aired everywhere. And so I appreciate that, Mark. So I'm, my hands are kind of tied because I got to work with all the HBO folks. So I get it. It's not my first rodeo per se. And she would actually check in with me, unprovoked by me. Hey, I hope we get a chance to still chat about the show. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'm working with your manager. It's okay, give me a thumbs up. And I told her when we actually got a chance to do this thing, I was like, I'm so appreciative of you making a point to everyone on your team that you want to do this. And she told me flat out, she said, Mark, anytime I send something to my manager, I told him, or she didn't say it so nicely. I told him that if I send it to you, you need to make it happen. I don't care what you need to do in your scheme of things, but you need to make this happen somehow. And she did. So if she had not done that, it probably wouldn't have happened at all. It just would have been, oh, sorry, Mark, we don't have the time. And she's so busy and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then I would have been disappointed.
Yeah. Well, of course, especially after all the work that you had put in up until that point and all the talk of like, oh no, yeah, like I want to do it. Like that would have been really, really disappointing if it hadn't worked out.
And trust me, it happens. Sometimes we're right in there. We're almost going to happen.
Yeah, but imagine it's difficult. Scheduling anything is difficult. I mean, getting together to schedule a podcast with 3 people when, we've got 3 completely different schedules and Brittany's got her kids, and it's just like, it's wild because it used to be so easy. I felt like I never did anything. And now I'm like, 3 Tuesdays from now, it's like, I've got to see what I have on my calendar. I never saw myself being a busy person. I don't really love being busy a lot of the time. I'd rather be right here on my couch and like, not thinking about whatever. But I'm like, oh, okay, don't forget, I'm the nagging wife. I'm like, don't forget we have dinner with so-and-so on this day. So it's funny, but yeah, it's so hard to schedule anything these days. Even virtually, it feels like it's so hard to like find a time where people who have, with us, it's different time zones. So like, oh, I have this day. Do you have this day? And then we're in completely different places. And then also, you might have a job to get to or kids to be wrangling or whatever. But
yeah, no, ever since I switched and started this other Muggle job almost a year ago, that's been probably my toughest thing. So like people that want to, like if there's friends locally that want to hang out and grab a beer or something on a Friday or Saturday, that's my Tuesday or Wednesday. So
yeah.
That's the last thing I want to do. And then reverse, today's my Friday on Monday, so they don't want to go drinking on a Monday.
Right. Yeah. So my weekends are Sunday, Mondays. So a lot of the time when I'm feeling like, oh, like I get to do whatever I want to, it's like my Sunday is my Saturday. So on a Sunday, I'll be like, what should we do? Let's get together. And people are like, yeah, I just have to be like, I can't stay long because I've got to work tomorrow. And I'm like, oh crap. Yeah, you do have to work tomorrow. Like, but what's really nice about those like off like schedules or different schedules is when I go to the grocery store, ain't nobody there. I love going there, and it's just like all the little old ladies that have like their masks on, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be such a quick trip.
I totally relate to that because again, so I work so early, it's almost like having 2.5 days for every weekend.
Yeah.
So tomorrow's my Saturday and Wednesday is my Sunday, and yeah, I see moms with babies, I see seniors. I get to go to like the first showing of on cheap day, which is Tuesday, for a movie in the theater.
Yeah.
because I'm available. And so there's definitely a plus to having an orthodox schedule.
Yeah.
The early morning shit, that's another story. But
what time do you have to wake up?
Well, like, so today my alarm went off at 12:20 a.m.
Oh no. So you took a nap though, right?
I had to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, no way.
Yeah.
I can't do it. There's the I can't remember what it's called, the 5 a.m. rule or something, where it's like people who wake up and are productive in the morning are happier and they're more productive and they like live longer. And I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't get out of bed that early and want to be alive. There's no part of me that if the sun is not up, I am not up. And the sun has to be up for kind of a while before I'm up. But I'm sure as I get older, I know that people are like, oh, you waste the whole day if you're sleeping in until like 9 or 10. And I'm like, I need to. I don't know how else to say it. I need to.
I'm older and I'm still a night owl and I'm still somebody that sleeps in. I'm somebody that doesn't want to get up early. I knew when the schedule came, this is beyond early. It's almost graveyard that I'm working. And then on top of this, I've got night events that I try to go to. So that was the rub. Like, well, shit. If I'm at LEAH Ingram's band comes to Seattle and I go see you and then I'm home by like 11:30 or midnight, 20 minutes later, my alarm's going off.
Yeah.
So that became the huge rub last year. So people that didn't know this, that's why I had to start cherry picking stuff. I had to cancel a bunch of things because I can't physically do this. There's no way for me.
No.
No.
When I was in school for hair in 2018, I worked at a bar and it was really difficult because I had 11-hour days at school every other day. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I had to be there at 9 a.m., usually before 9 a.m. And I had to leave at 8 p.m. So it was like a long day. And then go to the bar, work at the bar, close the bar, get home at 2 a.m. And then you had to wake up. I mean, depending on which days you were scheduled, but I was like, it got to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I just was like, I became a nanny. I was like, I need to completely rearrange everything else around. Like, school was the most important thing at that time. So I was like, well, I need to rearrange my schedule around the most important thing for me right now. Which if it's sleep, then of course, it's like that revolves around, okay, well, what time do I sleep? What time do I have to wake up for work? Okay, how long do I need to sleep before work? And then, it's like if you have to be up at midnight, you're not going to go to a show that's at 7 and it goes till 10 and then go home and be like, all right, I guess I'll take a nap.
Yeah, you recognize my struggle because I'll be completely transparent. Last year when I started the job, I had like an event on every week on a Friday or a Saturday. I had something that I was already committed to, and it was so ridiculous for me. I mean, literally, there is a dance troupe. They're actually coming back this month in April. I got a chance to do the interview with them and all this kind of stuff, see the show. And then by the time I got home, I had like 45 minutes before my alarm was going to go off.
Oh,
and I had not even done the schedule, so I wasn't even used to it yet. And so I'm like, oh, geez. So I just try to stay up. And I'm like, no, I got any sleep better than no sleep. So I went to sleep for a little bit, went and did my first location. And then in between that first one and the second one, I slept for like 15 minutes in my car. And then that's what told me in my head, what do you have coming in May? Because you got to start Xing some of the stuff off your schedule. You can't do this.
It starts to like take a toll on you.
It does. And anybody out there, like if you've ever like not gotten a good night's sleep, you don't feel like doing anything once you're home.
No. And that's the thing is, so whenever Nick is out of town, I tend to get like I don't sleep as well. He's like always the sleepy guy. So it gets to be like 10:30. He's falling asleep on the couch. And then I'm like, all right, we'll go to bed. But if he's not home, I will stay up all night because nobody's there telling me it's time to go to bed. And so then my sleep schedule, I'm all out of whack, and it's bad. So I'm always like, okay, I almost have to set a timer or like an alarm for like, you should be going to bed right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know, because people keep asking me, "Are you used to the schedule?" And I kept saying, "Well, I'm used to what it is, but if you compare this to a 8 to 5 p.m. schedule, no, I'm not. I'm never going to get to that level ever." But having said this, there are exceptions when I know, hey, I've got a back-to-back coming, and do I want to say yes to these things? If I really, really feel strongly about it, I'm like, well, fuck it, I'm going to say yes to them. And I know what I need to do prepping wise, like what this is going to do to me, but I know it's coming. So it's my own fault.
Mentally prepare and maybe physically prepare by knowing this is when my naps can happen. This is when I'm going to bed, or whatever it might be. Then it's a little bit easier. But if it's every weekend, like you were saying, where it was like, oh, I have something every weekend for the next 5 weeks, and your weekend is different than other people's weekends, then you're just completely discombobulated. It's just, yeah.
Yep.
I totally
get that. So, like tomorrow is my Saturday, and I have there's a new show at the Broadway at the Paramount. They're doing Beetlejuice, the musical, is here.
Oh.
So of course I said, oh, that's perfect. That's on a Tuesday. I can be there and I can be present. I can be awake. I can enjoy this. And then of course one of my favorite artists is coming to Jazz Alley the very next night on Wednesday, which is my Sunday. So I'm like, oh,
yeah.
I'll be awake for it because that's my Sunday, but then that's going to kill me on Thursday when I got to get up so early. So I gotta weigh it out. But I still put in for it anyway.
Well, you could always do, obviously on Saturday, you've already got your plans, but then like Sunday, try to just, I don't know if you can sleep in as late as you can, like take your time, like, I don't know, be leisurely until you have to get to where you're going, so that way it's kind of like the beginning of your day versus the end of your day.
Exactly. That's what I do. That's what I had to learn.
Really late on Saturday and then just fall asleep really early on Sunday at like, I don't even know. Now I'm just...
No, I had to figure things out. And that's what I kind of do. Is like, I have to make sure I don't put anything else on my schedule that day, because it's all about that show, and then making sure I get to work the next day and be functional there.
Yeah. I mean, if we're being fully transparent, if I have anything on my schedule at all, I'm pretty much like, well, that's my day. Like if I know like, oh, I'm going to meet friends for a happy hour at like 6 o'clock. I'm like, I can't do anything before then. What if I'm not back in, like, it's 6 o'clock. There's plenty of time to do plenty of things before when I wake up at 6 p.m. But I'm like, oh no, like that's my whole day. Like my day's revolving around that.
So I'm exactly in that space, because what I used to do, like, let's say I was at a show on a Saturday, like literally Saturday night, not my Saturday, but on a Saturday night. And then I had a friend say, hey, you want to get together for brunch on Sunday after your shift? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's not a big deal. I can, meeting a friend, that's not a big deal. Now it becomes, no, that's not going to a concert. That's an event. I have to take that into account. Oh, well, no, I'm at something Saturday night. So can you do Monday, or can you do, whatever day? Because I can't hang with it.
Yeah, it's gotta make sense, I guess. I'm lucky enough that I can make my own schedule. I used to go in at like 9 a.m. every Saturday. I'd be like, okay, Saturdays are going to be my early days. I'll work at 9 a.m. and go till like 4 p.m. or something like that. And every Saturday when somebody booked at 9 a.m., I would get so pissed off. I'm like, why are you here? It's so early. Why is anyone functioning at this time? And then I got to a point where I was like, why am I doing this to myself? I don't know. It's not making my life any easier. So I just decided, I was like, nope, we're going to go ahead and change it back, because the rest of my hours, like my day starts at 11 at work. So that way, if I wake up at 9, I've got time to eat and get ready and whatever until 11 rolls around. So I'm a late riser, like night owl, same as you. So I feel like it's difficult to adjust when you've got other people's schedules that don't match up with yours, or I guess the main schedule of most people, because you're on a completely different schedule from most people.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I feel a little bit bad that people have to make concessions with their own schedule to try to accommodate mine. And I said, well, I try to find a compromise if I can, realistically. Age plays a part in that too, that my body's not going to bounce back. My mental facilities are not going to bounce back if I don't get enough sleep. So it just became like, all right, 2024, excuse me, 2024, I have to be really, really intentional about what I'm doing with my schedule. 2023, I was fighting it. I was so not liking the fact that I have to compromise my media outlet for this muggle job when it's supposed to be the other way around. It's supposed to help support it. And I was like, well, I like that job, and it's been, the company's been good to me. So where's the happy medium, Mark? Well, part of it means you need to get your ass to bed earlier, because I was staying up till maybe 7 or 8 sometimes, which is, of course, not late to most people. To me, it was. So like right now, it's 5:39 over here. If this was going to be like, if I had to work tomorrow, I'd probably be getting ready to go to sleep at 6.
Mm-hmm. I have a friend, and she is a nurse, and she wakes up for her shifts at like 4 a.m. or something like that. So yeah, she's very similar, like goes to bed around probably like maybe 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. And I'm always like, why? Like, in my brain, I'm like, why would you wake up so early? And she's like, well, I have to do X, Y, and Z before work. And then, it makes sense in her, like in her life and the things that she does. But in my brain, I'm like, there's no way. Like, and I know that you have to retrain yourself, like when those types of things arise. So it's crazy. I'm interested to see how like my inner clock is going to be after coming back from a month of not having like alarms set and all of that kind of thing, and probably staying up later than I normally would. It's going to take a little bit to reset myself.
Yeah, and I think that's an honest way to look at it, because you're going to be out there on the road, and things are going to be in different time zones, and things are just going to kind of get all whatever.
Oh yeah.
And then you come back to this more regimented schedule when you're at home, of like, oh, okay, but I don't think that adjustment period will be too long based on your age.
Yeah, I feel like if people can go and fly to different countries and take vacations, and they're like, oh, I'm in, I don't know, Thailand or whatever. If they can do that and jet lag and whatever, I'm like, I'll be fine. It'll be fine. It's just that it's a long time to be out of whack, I think. So then coming back into, the normalcy of everything, and knowing me, like, I don't normally take time. Like, I probably won't give myself as many buffer days in between going back to work, because I'm going to just be like, all right, let's get back to it. So we'll see. Hopefully I don't regret that.
Well, I think, again, it's so exciting that you're going on tour, and again, that you finished up the 2nd season of the podcast, and eventually they'll be tackling the 3rd season. And you mentioned, Nick's Ingram Audio, that his company, and the work that he's been doing. Are you still doing some work to kind of help him with that?
Yeah, so we do a lot of stuff together. He's the like brains behind nearly everything. A lot of the time I'm just in the background doing, honestly, like grammar checks on emails and videos, just making sure that the social media stuff looks good when it goes up. But behind the scenes, even further, for a lot of the ads that he puts out, songs have to be written in order to like use them, because you can't use like you can't use copyrighted music. So we have to come up with new music to put so that you can hear, oh, this is what this sounds like. So I also help him a lot of the time with like lyrics and melodies and things like that for when he's writing music specifically for Ingram Audio things. And then a lot of the time we'll be like, well, we could make this a real song. And then usually we don't. And then we move on to the next one. But it's funny because there have been a couple of comments where people are like, oh, but what song is this? Like, this is cool. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it was kind of cool, but it's not a real, like, it's this long, you know, a real song has like all of the pieces, but yeah, so I'm very much just kind of like in the background as far as his company goes, stepping in where I can. I help film stuff sometimes, but you rarely will see me like being the person that's like in front of the camera talking about the products, because a lot of the time I have no idea what they do or how they work. But
Okay, so you're the support person.
I am 100% the support person, just like he is. I mean, I come home and I'll be like, oh my God, I did this balayage today. And I have to, you know, I'm all of the things. And he's just like, wow, that's so crazy. You did such a good job. Like, he doesn't know what I'm talking about, but he's always like just right there to support me. And I try to do the same. So I'm trying to just be like, yeah, background cheerleader, and then like helping out where I can. But he's very organized with what he does, as far as like he has ideas for everything, and I'm like, I will just step in where you need me to step in. Hold the camera, I got you. Help you write lyrics, I got you. Like, tell me what to do and I'll be there. So it's definitely not, I wouldn't say like a 50-50 thing, because he's doing so much of it. But yeah, I'm definitely there helping out where I can.
That's cool. And you found the roles.
Yes.
And when you're talking about like coming home from your job and telling him what you just did or how the day went or something, thinking about, I saw two of my friends last year that I hadn't seen in 8 years. It was like, so imagine trying to catch up over 8 years. What have you been doing for 8 years of your life?
Yeah, that is a long time.
It is, and one of them works as a vet tech, so she's dealing around the public and animals all day long.
Gosh.
And then the husband is working remote from home, so he sees nobody.
Yeah.
So, and he goes and picks her up and drops her off for work, because I guess they live pretty close to her place of work. And he was telling me, he's like, Mark, I had to learn really quick that she deals with people for 8.5 hours a day, and so sometimes she needs an hour to decompress. And I haven't seen anybody. He's the opposite. It's like he wants to like talk, and she's like, just give me a minute.
Yeah. Oh, and it's very much like that with us, because I interact with people all day, and a lot of times people come in and they just want to lay down their burdens. They're like, let me tell you the tea, and I'm sitting there ready to drink it. I'm like, yes, tell me about that comment your mother-in-law made at the barbecue. You know what I mean? Like, tell me all of the stuff. I'm fully ready to absorb it. But then if I get home, I'm so like drained socially that Nick's like, I haven't seen a person all day. I haven't talked to a person all day. I've just been around the pets and working with the chat GPT, like trying to build the coding for this thing. So he's like, let me tell you about my entire day. And I'm like, I need a second. But he's really good about that too. Sometimes I think I'm not. There are days where he'll be burnt out and I'm just like, what do you want to do? Let's go. Like, so sometimes when it's reversed, I forget about it, but.
Well, I'm not married, but I would assume that's kind of the things that you work out as a married couple. You understand each other well enough, and that's same with my two friends. They've been married for quite a while, and it's so weird because I met her as she was definitely still is like a gothic alternative model, still looks that way. And he came along. He was a boyfriend at that point, as a chaperone, and he brought his sister. And so that's why I remember. It's like do you remember the first time I met you guys in 2007? And I said, you came with your sister, and I went and worked with Kim in my other room that we did some of the in-store studio stuff, and we went outside. And I said, what was weird to me was that both of you brought a book, like literally a book, not like a device. And they were both reading books. And I'm like, this is so bizarre, because I've had other chaperones, and they're like wanting to almost like intrude during the shoot and stuff. Like, you need to go sit out here. We're trying to do our work kind of thing. And you can watch TV, you can do whatever. But I've never had somebody bring a book, and let alone two people bring a book. And he just couldn't stop laughing. I said, I do remember that my sister was visiting from out of town, and they're so nice, and I liked them immediately. And I said, yeah, and here we are in 2023, and we're reconnecting again. Here's a weird little thing to this too, and you'll know this from social stuff. they had seen some, this was on a Sunday when I saw them, they had seen some other friends the night before on Saturday. And the place that I randomly picked for us to meet for lunch on Sunday, those same friends of theirs were there. And they didn't even know they were going to be there. They crisscrossed each other like, hey, what are you doing here? And they're like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
So we're meeting up with our friend Mark. And I'm like, oh, that's why I'm like, I guess I picked the right place because your friends are here from last night.
Yeah.
Life's so bizarre sometimes.
Truly is. And then those are the things you remember. Like my nephew was just here last week and he was like, oh, remember when there was that dog that was running down the street when I was here last time? And I was like, what? And then I remembered and I was like, I didn't even remember that I was with you when that happened, or like, you know, whatever. It's like just like funny little blips of time where I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen like that. And it's like you might remember something so clearly just from like something silly that happened, like, you know, what you're like, oh yeah, remember we saw so and so, or like, I don't know, you spilled mustard on your pants. Like it's funny things like that like stick with you, where you're like, oh yeah, that did happen.
Yeah, my brain's totally like this. I remember all these trivial things, and then like really important things I can't remember at all.
No, I'm like, oh yeah, like I wore that shirt that day. Like who cares? Like I'm really bad about remembering years. For example, Nick will be like, oh, that happened in, you know, 2013. I know that because this album came out during that. And I'm like, my hair was this color, so it was probably at this point in my life.
I used to be really good with years and things, and then the last, I don't know, probably since the pandemic, my idea of like when something happened is really skewed now. I'll be at least a year, sometimes 2 years off. Like, I know that happened in 2018, and they're like, wait a minute, was I doing this? I was at that job doing this thing. Like, oh shit, no, it wasn't 2018. It was 2016.
Yeah.
And then I start thinking about all the other kind of things. Like, what else did I kind of mess up in my head about what I thought had happened?
Yeah.
And the longer you do it, the more I have those things happen. Even like if I look back when I was doing model photography, it's like, oh, I know in 2005 is when I started. And then this year is when I met this model, this model. And then you start doing more and more. Like, I can't keep all that stuff straight, especially now. Because I've had somebody reach out to me like, remember when we did that shoot? And I'm like, you don't even look like the same person. Did I work with you?
Yeah, it's like everything's so different now. Yeah.
It is. And even like with these things, I don't have that because I recognize you and we see each other through social media and all that kind of thing. But let's say for some reason, like 10 years from now, we're doing another one of these. Like, do you remember back on April 1st in 2024 that we talked about this? And it might be some kind of random thing that I will remember that we did, but all the other stuff I'll be like, I don't know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It'll just be one of those things where it floats by in my brain, but there'll be like, oh yeah, but like we talked about this one little thing that one time.
Yeah, I have lots of people. I feel like as I age, if I had kids, it'd be like my kids saying, Dad, don't you remember when we did this? If they remember, I don't know.
Right.
We took that trip down to Portland. I'm like, we did? When you were with us?
You were alive?
Yeah. There's this little bit from the comedian Richard Pryor when he's talking about with his kids that when he can't remember things, he's like, baby, do I jog? And no, Daddy, you don't jog.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I feel like I'm getting to. But well, you know what, Leah? It's been amazing talking to you for an hour and almost 49 minutes. Holy mackerel. Clearly, we have a comfortableness with us, and I want to enjoy talking with you and also seeing what you got coming up. And yeah, my timing was good this time. Not that you need to have something coming up, but it's always nice to have, the catch-up period, but also there's some other things that we can talk about as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we got a chance to do that. So you're getting closer to the Northwest.
Yeah, we're getting there. Maybe at some point, right? It'll happen.
Yeah, or you're on some other tour and you're down in California again, and for some weird reason I'm actually down there for some reason. I actually travel somewhere out of state, which might happen.
Yeah.
Then we can actually crisscross paths in person, because that's something that's happened only a handful of times with people from the streaming world that I've actually got a chance to meet them here in Seattle, and it's very, very cool. It's also a little weird because you know so much about them already, but you haven't actually physically met, you know, like the way they smell, like if they smoke or whatever they got going on.
Right. Absolutely.
If they're tall, short, you know, because I'm short and people think somehow maybe I'm taller and like, oh, I thought you'd be tall. I said, I'm 5'5". I'm not tall. Yeah, that happened in 2022. Last year, 2023. So, but I love it. I would, if I can meet everyone that I've done an interview with, you know, virtually, that would be amazing to actually meet them in person. And hopefully vice versa.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I look forward to the day that like I'm playing there or something's going on where we can absolutely cross paths and we can see how we're both really short in real life.
Yeah, that'll be amazing. And like, I'm terrible with
You'll
selfies.
look tall compared to me.
That'll be interesting. You know, I just had I had some dental work done, and my hygienist, I swear, I think she was maybe 4'10". So I was actually looking down at her. I'm like, God, how short are you?
Yeah.
That's a rarity in my life.
Right. Me too. It's funny because somebody will be like, I'll call somebody tall and they're like, well, I'm not tall. I'm only blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you look tall to me. Everybody looks tall to me.
Yeah, that's my world. I said, do you ever have to get your jeans hemmed?
Nope. I just roll them. Roll them up.
Yeah. Do you ever have to like try to do this when you're at concerts on the floor because you can't quite see anything?
Yeah.
All the time. That little spot between two people's shoulders.
Yeah, because the tall people inevitably always stand in front of you. And it's like they probably just didn't see you or notice that you're there. And you're like, okay, that's fine. I'll just suffer.
Yeah. It's just like, especially if it's like a festival type of thing where it's just like, you know, everyone stands wherever, you realize that they're not doing it on purpose. It's just like,
no, it's, we're just falling in line. You know, we're all here to see the same thing. And I'm like, well, I need a ladder or something. Stilts. I need stilts.
Yeah. I'm thinking of this one show that I was at last year, and this person came, finally caught up with their friends, which is obviously a common thing at a concert. And I thought I had a really good vantage point. And then this person showed up who was probably 6'4", and I'm like, God damn it. We're all squished, you know, shoulder to shoulder. So I'm like, it's not like I can necessarily find a better spot now.
Right.
Kind of once the band, you know, the lights go down, the bands come on, then people kind of maneuver around, and I can find a better spot. But
oh my gosh, well, yeah, there's definitely some disadvantages, but you know, there's some advantages too, I think.
Yeah, you know, I would agree with that too. I mean, especially if you're like really tall, you can't hide from anywhere. I mean, Everybody sees you everywhere you go, to the grocery store, to anything.
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of disappear.
Yeah. Like you see somebody at the grocery store, you're like, I don't want to talk to you right now. And you can just keep going.
Yeah, put my hoodie on and just gonna go. Yeah, if you're 6'6" or something, yeah, everyone's gonna
Everybody knows where you are. Everybody's looking at you as you go by.
Yeah, like, wow, look how tall that person is.
Yeah. How tall do you think that person is?
Totally.
And you're Googling celebrity heights.
Oh my gosh. But again, it was amazing catching up with you, Leah, and I so treasure our friendship that we have virtually.
Yeah, me too.
I wish you hopefully I'll start checking out the band for sure, and then once you guys are actually on the road, kind of seeing how whatever gets posted through social media and how, you know, the shows are going and wherever you're at and all the trials and tribulations of being on
yes
the road.
Sure that I'll be nice and loud about all the things I'm experiencing, as I always am. So yeah, well, next time we talk, we'll be able to kind of touch base over everything that happened, and I'm sure I'll have so many more things to put, you know, to add into it.
Yeah, you know, I'll definitely let you, you know, decompress once you're back home and kind of get back into your routine of things. And then after that's kind of settled, maybe I'll ping you and we'll see if we can kind of come back in and specifically talk about, okay, let's hear it.
Yes, absolutely. Sounds great to me.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you. Thank you for the people that are watching right now, and have a really great night.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.